Okay guys, so once you have your photograph uploaded onto your desktop, you're going to hover over it with your mouse. Find the control key on your computer, lower left-hand corner, hold down control, and click on the image. You're going to go down to open with. Now, if your Photoshop is uploaded, up to date, if you've downloaded Adobe Creative Cloud, and you're signed in with your school account, you should see Adobe Photoshop right here. If not, check in with me, we can troubleshoot that. But if it's right there, click on it. Let's open our picture with Photoshop. Okay, so I've got my Photoshop open. You can see my photo's pretty good, like it's a nice rectangle. I do have this concrete frame like I told you guys to have. I see there's a little bit of a shadow, but not too much, so this is definitely a good photo to work with because everything seems to be in focus. The first thing we're going to do over here on the left-hand side to get rid of some of this excess concrete around the outside edge, we're going to scroll down to the crop tool. If you don't see the crop tool over here, I would go up to this little magnifying glass, search for the crop tool. That is going to bring up any tool that you can't find over here. But let's go ahead and click on that and see what happens. Okay, so I have my little crop bars right here. I'm going to drag those in, not all the way to the image or into the image, but just give a little bit of a concrete frame. We're bringing this pretty close to the edge without touching the white of the page. Once you have your crop tools in place, it looks pretty close in. You're going to hit the return button to commit to that action. Okay, so now I've got just this little concrete frame. For my next step, I'm going to move up to one of these top two tools, either the move tool or the rectangular marquee tool. I'm just going to click on that, have that there resting. I could select my entire image by dragging that tool, but rather than do that, what's a little bit easier, I'm going to hold down the command button and I'm going to press A. That stands for select all. So command A means you're going to select everything. Once you've selected everything, we're going to go one step further. Hold down Command and T. Command T should bring up your transform tool. Transform now has these little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares around the outside edge of your image. If you click on one of those squares and move it in and out, it's going to change your image. However, we don't want to do that, so I'm going to hit Command Z, get it back to where it was. If I hold down Command while clicking on one of these corners, so I'm holding down the Command key, clicking on the corner, I can really skew my image, really change it in some weird ways. What I want to do today though, all I want to do, I want to take this white corner of the paper and put it right in the corner of my Photoshop canvas. The Photoshop canvas is this editable area of my image. So that corner looks good now. It's plugged in there. The picture still looks a little skewed. So I'm going to do the same thing for each corner. The goal of this is to get our photograph looking like our original work of art. So now that all four corners are matched up, it looks much more like my original rectangular composition. If I am happy with how that looks, I'm going to hit the return key to again commit to that action. So now I've got my picture. It looks pretty good. It fills the whole space. It still is a little bit gray though. We're trying to go for that coloring book look where you've got a kind of bright white background and some nice heavy dark lines. In order to get more of that look, to brighten up your picture, give it a little more contrast, I'm going to come up here to this top menu where you see Photoshop 2024. I'm going to go over to Image. I'm going to go down to Adjustments. When I hover over Adjustments, it's going to open up a second menu on the side, and I'm going to go down to Curves. You can see there's also a shortcut for that, the Command M right there. Okay, with the Curves box, I'm going to scooch this over so I can still see my picture, see exactly what edits I'm doing live. This line right here dictates how the contrast looks on our picture, the bright areas, the dark areas. Right now I'm going to go up in this area, not all the way to the top, but in this rectangle or square right here. I'm going to grab the white line And I'm going to pull it up. Do you guys see how that brightens my picture? If I go all the way up, the lines start to disappear. If I go all the way down, it gets really dark. So I'm going to bring this right in this area so that my picture looks kind of bright. Yours may be a little bit different. Yours might not go exactly to this spot, but you just want to drag it up until your picture over here looks nice and bright. If any of your lines have disappeared or look a little light, you can also click down here, drag back in to bring a little bit more contrast back in. I'm looking at my plant, it's looking really good with those dark lines around it. And so I think that's pretty good for my contrast. Once I'm happy with my contrast, I'm going to do OK. If you're messing around with this box and it just goes totally crazy and you can't fix it, just do cancel and repeat that action. But this looks pretty good, so I'm going to hit OK. Great, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to hit Command plus to be able to see my picture a little bit better. And I'm going to look at any areas that look like they have a little bit of shadow on them. If I want to get rid of any kind of shadowy areas that are darker than the rest of the page, and I don't want to edit my overall image, I can come in here and choose the Dodge tool. The Dodge tool looks like a little lollipop almost. It's got a cute little dog right here, so you can think of it as the Doge tool if you want to. Click on that. You can change the size of the tool up here in the brushes category. I can make that smaller or larger, but honestly about 500 is probably going to be pretty good. When I hover over it, I can see. Guys, if your brush for any tool ever looks like a little crosshair instead of the actual circular brush where you can see the size of it, double check, make sure your caps lock key is not on. Caps lock will turn on and off that little crosshair, and you generally want it off. Okay, so now I've got my tool. I'm going to come over to these more shadowy areas, press down, and just run over those areas with the Dodge tool. This is going to lighten up these areas a little bit. The downside of this is it does make your lines lighter as well, and it can really make your background kind of go a little like more bright than you need it to be. So, use it sparingly. If it ever gets too much, just do Command Z, that's our best friend. But the idea is we want to make this look like a coloring book image. So once this looks pretty good overall, like a good base for me to color onto, I'm going to come up here to File. I'm going to go to Save As. Once I'm in Save As, I'm going to type in my first name, last initial. I'm going to go from JPEG, which is the format the camera takes, up to Photoshop. And once I select Photoshop, the Save to Cloud Documents option should appear. If it doesn't, save it to your computer for now, but if it does, let's go ahead and save your document as a Photoshop document to the cloud. You're going to have to hit the blue button, and then you're good to go. That is the step to complete that background image, have it ready for coloring.